Hello and welcome to another video by Rick Miracle, me, in my series Freemasonry and Satanism, a new series number 109. And I thought about it for a moment and I said, how apropos is that? Because I'm going to do a video about a Messiah. So he said, a prophet who became a Messiah, originating over there in the area of Turkey, Bosnia, Ukraine, Western Russia. He was, I guess, a use of the Khazarian DNA. A whole nation that converted to Judaism years earlier and were a barbaric people and lots of horrific invasions from one side and the other. A very bizarre story in human history. The man's name is Shabbetai Zevi. I might be saying that wrong. Show you a picture of him, an engraving. Certainly doesn't look like the Messiah that we Christians know about, Jesus. In the year of his revealing that he's the Messiah, 1666 is a little ominous. Think about it. 666. And I'm surprised even today when I talk to people. They go, I don't get it. What does 666 mean? The mark of the beast. Like, for example, so many. Aleister Crowley changed the spelling of his name so that numerology, it would be 666. In numerology, there are several versions of numerology, but one version is A would be 6, B would be the second letter, 2 times 6, 12, and C, of course, 3 times 6, 18, and D, 4 times 6, 24. So however, whatever name you want to add up all the letters, you do it that way. And apparently, there are many unusual coincidences, and you can look up 666 and numerology calculators online, and they'll give you a long list of words that are ominous words. Even a computer equals 666. Something like, I think Eric Schmidt, CEO from Google, I tried his name, it was 666. I thought, for some reason, that Newt Gingrich got divorced. I thought, from what I read or video I watched, wasn't sure, that Newt Gingrich got divorced because he was into wife swapping or whatever. And that made my brain work, knowing what I know from my research, that maybe his name would equal 666. Because that's what I learned from Rabbi Marvin Antelman and other books. This numerology, this magic, this witchcraft, Pythagoreanism, and the symbols, the circles and triangles and pentagrams. So with Newt Gingrich, I looked it up. I put Newt Gingrich, Newton Gingrich, and I couldn't get 666. But for some reason, I persisted. And finally, I wound up on Wikipedia, and his real name was Newton McPherson. And McPherson, I plugged it into the calculator, and aha, it was 666. I was even watching a video way before my investigation began in 2005 on what the heck is going on in the world. That's all I was doing. But I remember watching a BBC TV documentary about a man who got a license plate for his car You know, we all have to go down to the driver's license or the vehicle registration place and get our tags. And the lady behind the counter said, "You don't have to take this tag. We'll give you another one." And the man laughed and he said, "I'm not afraid of 666. Give me the tag." Well, the story goes, according to the BBC documentary, his life went to hell. Divorce, illness, lost job, anything that could go wrong did go wrong. And the man was a difficult man to convince. And it took him a while, but finally he got totally just depressed and ruined. He said, "I give up." And he went and turned in the tag and said, "I can't have this tag. For some whole reason, my whole life is a mess. And everything is falling down, crashing around me. Family, wife, job, money. It couldn't get worse. Health." So he got the new tag. And apparently all of a sudden his life turned around. He married another new beautiful girl, got a great job, and everything started going back up again. And the point of that story is when I read about this so-called Messiah that came in 1666, and his apparently visions or communication with the divine, he was given a set of commandments that paralleled the 10 Commandments. The 10 Commandments: one God, don't kill, don't steal, don't do adultery, don't covet, don't bear false witness, don't worship idols, honor thy mother and father. A parallel set of commandments were just the opposite. Thou shalt kill. I guess when there's only supposed to be one God, thou shalt have all many gods. Thou shalt steal, thou shalt commit adultery. Yes, you can commit false witness, and you should covet what other people want. Think about that. Not a Messiah like Jesus, who came and taught to treat each other how you want to be treated, but a Messiah who treated just the opposite. And it was a sin if you didn't sin. What I'm trying to say is, it was a sin if you didn't obey that second set of commandments, the parallel set. It's like a mirror image. That's another sign of the devil and demons and Satanism and all that, is sometimes when they write backwards. You can't see it. You put it up to a mirror and it gives you the correct image. You can see it. Even those songs on certain rock and roll albums, when you play it backwards, you could hear the words. So what is there to this other realm, this, I guess, a realm of entities that want to do just the opposite of the 10 Commandments, of God's words, of Jesus' words, and other common sense religions around the world? When I took a comparative religious course in college, most of the religions of the world, the commandments were pretty much the same. They all had do not kill, do not steal, stuff like that. But then you have this one excluded Messiah here in 1666, and I'm sure before then there was evil in the world, and maybe this video will give us a glimpse into that evil. And I'm going to continue with the Judaica Encyclopedia, number 14, on this man who called himself the Messiah. And half the Jews, according to this material in this book, and other videos I was watching on YouTube, converted secretly into this religion of Sabbatianism, later to become the Frankist religion. And apparently it's into the Kabbalah, into the occult, and they want to keep it hush-hush. They don't want people to know what I'm about to read. In the Encyclopaedia Judaica, here's how you spell his name there, top of this page. And you can see how much I read. But before I begin, I'd like to look at a couple books. I'd like to look at a few books I have. Some we've gone over and made videos, some I haven't, and I will. But apparently, when I talk about this parallel set of commandments, these divine entities that convince people like Shabbetai Zevi that he is the Messiah, and everybody has to practice evil, orgies, wife swapping, and much more horrific activities. So what are we dealing with? What kind of entities are out there? It might behoove us to think about that. But here's one book by Raymond Fowler, The Watchers, the secret design behind the UFO abduction. So, according to my research and reviewing some videos on this Messiah of 1666, Shabbetai Zevi, Sabbatianism, and later on the Frankism. Then we have the Frankenstein stories, the Illuminati, and we have a lot of these aliens abducting people, apparently involving medical operations, removing sperm or ovaries, or having sex with people, or having men have sex with aliens to produce some kind of offspring. And this goes all the way back to 1666 and further beyond in the Bible. The Watchers are in the Bible. The Nephilim are in the Bible. We all remember the stories of Atlantis, the monuments all over the world. The Song of the Greys. So what are we to think? I'm going to read these books. I'm going to delve into this subject completely. And I've made a video on this book, Psychic Self-Defense. So people get into the occult. They get into witchcraft and the magic. They make a circle, they put a star in it, and they get inside and practice witchcraft. When you communicate with these other beings or leave your body and travel in this astral plane, you can run into some very horrible entities and creatures. You can die. You can be killed. You'll never make it back to your body. Psychic self-defense. You need to know what you're doing to enter this world. I've made videos on this. Carlos Castienda, the separate reality, the secret doctrine. I've mentioned all the different kinds of angels and demons and beings. And then, of course, Tex Mars wrote this book, The Holy Secret of the Jews. So I was watching the Tex Mars video and reading this, and I got one of his newsletters. And he was giving a speech one day, and a Jewish man at the end of the speech stood up and said, "I'm offended." Or he came over to Tex Mars and said, "I'm offended." And Tex Mars says, "You know, I don't know why you're offended. Aren't we all from Adam and Eve? Aren't we all from the same seed?" And the man angrily said, "No, we're not from the same seed. We're from the seed of the serpent. Holy serpent of the Jews." And of course, this doesn't mean all Jews. It seems like it's a 50-50 divide. A lot of Jewish people in the world are oblivious to this, maybe most of the Jews. But some of them are into the Kabbalah and secret societies. And these are the people who have created Israel, the banksters, the Rothschilds, and many other higher-ups in the secret societies controlling our world. And they've been murdering the Palestinians. They caused, in my opinion, and my research, and many others, 9/11, World War I, World War II, the war between the North and the South of the United States, the French Revolution, the Russian Revolution, and so much more. Like I said, it might just behoove us to wake up. There's another book I have to read, Blueprints of the Gods. I haven't read it yet. The human bloodline of the Anunnaki. How many people are aware of this so-called Planet X, Nibiru, Zacharias Stitchins, and the Anunnaki? Apparently came here from another solar system with a planet called Nibiru in search of gold because their atmosphere was dissolving and letting in all kinds of harmful X-rays and making it very unhealthy for them. So they needed some gold dust to seed into their atmosphere. And apparently they made their way to Earth, according to how the story goes, which I'm not necessarily buying, by the way. And the laborers, the Anunnaki, didn't want to, they complained. It's like you would normally have. Here's a picture in the book. And you can see the beings standing there. I'm going to be excited to read this. But anyways, the Anunnaki laborers complained, and it was too difficult, a very difficult job working on Earth, digging in the ground trying to find gold. So apparently the way the story goes is they had a laboratory and had some scientists and took some of their DNA and some of the ancient human DNA and created the hybrid being now called man and woman to mine the gold for them. And of course I made videos on that, and you can go watch them or pick up Zacharias Stitchin's books as well as many others. And now if you go on YouTube, there's all these threats of an incoming Planet X or Nibiru or this star system Nemesis, and it's supposed to cause havoc with our solar system. Earthquakes, pole shifting, volcanoes, weather, climate change. Turn everything topsy-turvy. A catastrophe. So they say. And as I said, I'm not buying it. Who are these entities who are pushing all this propaganda? We might reveal some of that when I go over the Shabbetai Zevi material in the Encyclopaedia Judaica. This Messiah who came to the so-called Jewish people in 1666. Blinded. I made some videos on this one. And by the way, you can go to my channel and get a list of my videos. Or go to my rickmiracle.com website. In the top left is a link, and you can see a list of my videos. So you can cut and paste and make a little cheat sheet chart so you can go through there and watch what you want. Whether it's UFOs, the New Age, New World Order, Zionism, conspiracy theories, and so much more. I've been trying to cover every topic because I'm convinced everything is connected. So they got these books. Got this planet supposed to be coming into our system. Every day, these people on the YouTube talk about increases in earthquakes or crazy weather due to this anomaly caused by this other sun or these other planets. And the pole shift, they show you charts and show how the earth is shifting, causing all these crazy things. Cracks in Africa, sinkholes. A lot of people are aware of this, and I think it's meant to mess with the mind. Another book I went over, Planet X, 2012 Survival Guide. Is something coming? They would have us believe that. And I made one video on some of these books. I will be making a part 2. So if you see part 1, it doesn't necessarily mean there's already a part 2 published. Someday when I complete the whole thing, I'll further organize everything so that it's exact. I recently did take everything down and put everything back up and did a lot of cleaning to it. It took me several months. Gray aliens and the harvesting of souls. We've all heard about the abductions. I've been making videos. I'm going to make some more videos. I'm going to dig deep and try to find out all this information I can. But apparently in ancient history, there has always been sexual related crazy things where these demon beings would try to have sex with people at night while they're in a dream state, and all kinds of other monsters and beings. So this ought to be an interesting book here. It has a lot of scientific stuff in it. So much to do. Not enough time to do it all. Gray Aliens and the Harvesting of Souls. Transylvania Sunrise. I made a video on this book. Again, you can go to rickmiracle.com. Top left says a list of videos on YouTube. Click it, cut and paste, make a cheat sheet, and you'll find out what series number this was. Or just put in my Freemasonry and Satanism, Transylvania Sunrise, Peter Moon, Rudu Cinema on the bottom there. But apparently they found this super high-tech lab inside of a mountain that could really only be used by giants. If I stood next to one of the seats of the chair, the top of the chair might come up to here. So if I wanted to go get to the top of the table, I'd have to get a ladder to get into the chair, stand up on my feet if I could see the top of the table, and had all these big glass panels you could touch and get holographic images talking about all of creation. So it's in this book. Is all that stuff true? Is the monuments, the ancient monuments and material, is it really in this mountain? And of course, one of my favorite authors, Eric von Daniken, Gods from Outer Space. And of course, the Gold of the Gods, the one book I did make a video on, where they had those 4-foot-high sheets of gold with images of these beings that look like gray aliens and stuff like that. So there's something weird going on in the world. And even in Eric von Daniken's book, you can see these images of the hieroglyphic images from Egypt area and around the world. Machu Picchu lines in Peru right there, you can only see from a plane. Big round balls discovered around the world. Who made them? Bringers of the Dawn. Barbara Marcinek apparently communicates, here she is, picture of her, with some kind of beings called Palladians. Who said that they came here in ancient human history and messed with our history, our world, our DNA, and they've come back to make amends. I've made videos on these, and I'll revisit these books. You can go on YouTube and punch in Barbara Marcinek and watch some of her videos. And she calls into the room, and she has a whole group of people she's speaking to, and she says, "Welcome, the Palladians are here." Some invisible beings that she can talk to. The pixies are here. The angels are here. The masters are here. Who are these people talking to? And then the secret societies, as many people are becoming more aware, child abduction, harvesting organs from humans all over the world. There's our governments, CIA, FBI, and all these other secret society organizations are aware of this. Some of them are involved. The people who rule our governments, the world, have a huge organization for harvesting body parts to give these elitist people a vastly longer lifespan. And apparently technology has advanced that far. And of course it could be also for material used with these other beings to be able to exist and manifest themselves in this world. But with the election recently and the information coming out about the accusations with the Clintons and Podesta and many others, apparently involved in child trafficking and child sex and much more. Horrific stuff. Satanic rituals. They even have a big party with a human being, a cake, not a real flesh and blood human being, but the shape of a human being. And then for the party, they're slicing off the ear, the head, the arm, and eating it at this party. I was watching a video today and taking notes. That's what I normally do. And a couple books on this harvesting of body parts. One book is Comifying Bodies. Another one is The American Heart of Darkness by Robert Kirkconnell. You can see the names here. And then George Webb is researching this stuff and more. A lot of people who apparently were working for the Clintons, even during the last 6 months of the election in 2016, disappeared or died. And this George Webb was created a series of videos. Where is Eric Breverman, the CEO of the Clinton Foundation? And Seth Rich was shot in D.C., another Clinton employee. And this stuff, according to the videos, is not hearsay, but factual evidence. The Hillary emails, Podesta emails, the Huma emails, all the stuff that WikiLeaks and others released. And other kinds of crazy thing involving these secret societies like the Knights of Malta. Apparently the Malta Grand Master of the Knights of Malta resigns, and the new Pope took over as the leaderships of the Knights of Malta. And apparently these Knights of Malta historically have also been enforcers for the church or assassins, as well as accusations like that about the Jesuits and other organizations. So when I go over this stuff about this Messiah, Shabbetai Zevi, saying these names wrong, I keep all this other stuff in the back of my mind. And I am aware that the powers that be are afraid of we, the people, finding out all these insane, evil activities, and they have built underground bases and tunnels. And a lot of us are aware, with the sky spraying of chemicals in the sky, and the HARP transmitters, whether there's sonic electromagnetic radiations, or microwave and other deadly frequency radiations. They have these ground-based antenna area that can bounce off the ionosphere, and when they bounce it and pulse it, that would be like a sonic boom, and apparently it can cause earthquakes and other horrific activities, as well as almost like an X-ray for the ground. They can see what's in the ground with monitors on the ground after they pound it with the sonic waves. So we know this stuff is happening. The books are out there. I've gone over them. Fritz Springmeier, Bloodlines of the Illuminati. He names names. It's all in these books. It's got Clinton in here doing the devil sign. So as I was just saying, this bloodline of the Illuminati names, all the details, big thick book. Has a picture of the airport hangar in Arkansas where Bill was governor. People's names and pictures. Bill Clinton giving the satanic salute with his left hand. You're going to love this. The exoteric meaning of this satanic salute, the horns of the devil. You could find Bush doing that, and a lot of famous people. The secret esoteric meaning is that this means I love you. Again, we're going to go over the Messiah that came around in 1666 from the Jewish people in the Ukraine, Western Russia area, Turkey, Greece, all north of the Mediterranean. Who are these people? And why did they embrace this apparently satanic, demonic religion? The hand signal actually puts Illuminati slaves into a programmed hypnotic trance. Kathy O'Brien and many others, you can go on my website, rickmiracle.com. I have a lot of these people who are whistleblowers, people who escaped and tell all. Arizona Wilder with the David Icke interview. So they can program people, put them in a trance. And center-left Webb Hubbell, Hillary's law partner, who was rewarded for his dirty work for Hillary and Bill and Friends and Associates, Attorney General of the U.S., Hillary, an Illuminati grand dame, outranks Bill in the hierarchy. And below is the hangar used at Mena, Arkansas by CIA Black Ops, cocaine smuggling. So like I said, there's a lot of good people in the FBI and the CIA and other organizations in our government and the police, but there are a lot of evil people that are apparently into this satanic religion. In my pursuit, trying to find out the truth and understand this, which is all bizarre, I agree. I am reading, and halfway through this one, Bloodlines of the Gods, not to be confused with the other book, Bloodprints of the Gods. And apparently, again, they're getting back to where possibly these aliens use DNA with ancient Neanderthal or ancient man to create we the people today. This author goes to great lengths to try to show that. I'm reading it, I'm halfway through. I'll be making a video on that. Then another one, a lot of people are aware that the people who occupy Palestine today, now called the State of Israel, which was being settled secretly, shipping in people, immigrants, way before 1946, 7, and 8, when they were legally, so-called, given the annexation of some of the Palestinians' land to create the State of Israel. My evidence and my research shows it was going on for a couple hundred years. Theodore Herschel, a well-known journalist, famous person, came up with the conclusion that the Jews couldn't live among us. They had to have their own place. And again, not all Jews. But I'm reading this book right now. It's a pretty popular book these days. A lot of people are talking about it. And the 13th tribe. This book traces the history of the ancient Khazar Empire, a major but almost forgotten power in Eastern Europe, which in the Dark Ages became converted to Judaism. So in the Dark Ages, 600, 700, 800s, 12, 1300 years ago, this barbaric group of people, the Khazars, over there where Ukraine is now, or Khazaria, and Georgia, and western Russia, all that area, Bosnia, it was occupied by some very barbaric people. And there were ravages of war. The Arabs and Muslims were coming from the Middle East up into this Caucasian area, the Caucasus Mountains, And the Khazarians stopped them. If they hadn't stopped them, these Arabs would have made it all the way over to Germany, France, and England, Europe. And then, of course, from Rome, there was the Roman Empire trying to take over the world. The Muslims were fighting back, and then you got these Khazarians who were finally wiped out by the forces of Genghis Khan, the Mongolians, a little further towards the east in Russia, north of China. But evidence indicates that the Khazars themselves migrated to Poland and formed the cradle of Western Jewry. So they really weren't Jews. The kingdom under the king who declared everybody would adopt that religion, so they wouldn't be usurped, apparently, by the Christian religion, the Catholic Church, the Pope, the Romans, or usurped by the Muslims, all in the Middle East. They decided to go with the Judaism religion. And then that brings us now to what I'm about to read in this book. And maybe it'll put some of this in context. But this Messiah that came in 1666, he was born before that, but he declared himself the Messiah, was taken seriously by a vast amount of the Jewish societies all over Western and Eastern Europe and the Russian territories and Ukraine area and Poland and Austria. And there were some in Italy and Spain, groups of Jewish people all over the world back then. And here comes this Messiah with a parallel set of commandments, just the opposite. Instead of thou shalt not kill, it was thou shalt kill. Instead of thou shalt not steal, is thou shalt steal. It was actually a sin for these people to not do something evil every day. To we other people who were non-them, non-Sabbatans, non-Kabbalistics, the Jews that embraced this religion, who were already in the Torah Judaism, but now they went to the Talmud Judaism. So these are different biblical books, the Zohar, the Talmud, the Kabbalah, and there's many others. And out of that sprung this story I'm about to tell. Sorry to take so long to get there, but all this other stuff I presented, all this evil activity in the world, needs to be understood why they're doing it. Again, I say, how many of us have even heard of this stuff? And after my research since 2005, 12 years, going on 13 years, I didn't know this. How many people understand the Jewish people's religion? How many Jewish people, good people all over the planet, understand this Jewish people's religion? The people that turned from believing in God, the good Jews, or people who were just atheists, didn't care, secular. But these other people turned towards this dark religion, coming from some divine being, and now having a Messiah that apparently is popular all over the world, but must be kept secret from the rest of us. Does it explain Alex Jones sneaking into the Bohemian Grove in California, and the giant owl named Moloch and a fire in the belly throwing a baby into the fire, called the cremation of care, and all these famous politicians and leaders all over the world photographed there? Bushes, Nixon, Reagan, Kissinger, and many more, dressing in long robes, apparently. They were photographed there, but they weren't photographed like that. I'm not sure who was in Alex Jones' videos that could be identified. But these men were dressed in long robes, and apparently there was some screeching and hollering, just like a Halloween party, a nightmare. And they would ship in, according to the story, gay men, and they would engage in homosexual, satanic sexual rituals, which apparently is the theme behind what I'm about to read. According to Rabbi Marvin Anthelman's book, that's exactly what it was. They were the instigators or the creators of the swingers, people swapping their wives, and This was a religious thing to them. The more evil they could do, the more reward they would get from this divine being. So let me read on and see if you can see what I saw. Shabbetai Zevi, 1626 to 1676. The central figure of Sabbatianism, that's the name of the religion, Sabbatianism. The Masonic movement called after him. So again, we all know about Jesus, the prophesied Messiah that was supposed to come. Who knows about the 666 Messiah that did come to these Jewish peoples, that took the whole Jewish world by surprise, and everybody was excited. They thought they cut the roofs off their house because they thought they were going to be beamed up. Crazy stuff. Background of the movement. Sabbatianism was to the largest and most momentous Messianic movement in the Jewish history. That's the first sentence on the beginning of this paragraph. I didn't say it. It says here in the Encyclopaedia Judaica. The largest and most momentous Masonic movement in Jewish history, subsequent to the destruction of the temple and the Bar Kokhba revolt. So we already know now there are renditions or models of the new King Solomon's temple that they're trying to build and are building right now in Jerusalem, even with Donald Trump, the new president, apparently for some interesting reason, moving the embassy from Tel Aviv, Israel, to Jerusalem, Israel. So something's kind of mysterious here, and there has to be a reason. I suspect it has something to do with this stuff I'm reading. The factors giving rise to its extraordinary, widespread, and deep-seated appeal are twofold. Are you hearing the words that I'm saying that are printed in this book? This is no small thing. On the one hand, there was the general condition of the Jewish people in exile. So the Jewish people have been in exile for thousands of years, and they call it the diaspora. They have something going on right now called the Aliyah. And for the last 100 plus years, more about 150 years, or probably earlier, and you'll see that described in this book I'm reading. But they've been, all these Jews who were dispersed all over the world, the diaspora, for thousands of years. And a lot of countries where they settled, they were run out of town or run out of the country, as I've gone over in my videos. Even General Ulysses Grant banned the Jews from the Tennessee territories. And all kinds of incidences in my recent videos from this book. The problems they had in the United States and the shipping of the Yiddish Jews over here. These people, the Yiddish Jews, and again, not all Jewish people, a lot of good Jewish people, are completely unaware of this story I'm about to tell. On the one hand, there was the general condition of the Jewish people in exile and the hopes for political and spiritual redemption. That's pretty important, spiritual redemption. Fostered by Jewish religious tradition and given great emphasis in Jewish thought, which at all times could provide fertile soil for the blossoming of Masonic movements aimed at ushering in redemption. So they want to be redeemed, they want to be put back in the high place, God's chosen people. How did they do that? And apparently the way the story goes is if you can't be good, then be bad. And if you're going to be bad, you have to be real bad. So apparently you can be redeemed two ways, by being good, and they said it's not easy to be good, it's easier to be bad, and apparently they believe if you're really bad and you do a good job of it, you can be redeemed. Crazy? You think? On the other hand, there were the specific conditions contributing to the impetus of the movement began in 1665. Politically and socially, the position of the Jews in the various countries of the diaspora was still basically the same, and with few exceptions, they pursued their specific way of life apart from surrounding Christian and Muslim society, facing humiliation and persecution at every turn of political events in the constant awareness of their insecurity. So, oh my, I'm thinking to myself, this is back in 1665. Did you hear what I just said? During the diaspora, they were dispersed all over the world. There were lots of them in Poland and Ukraine and Khazaria and Russia and all over. Some had made it to Spain and England and Italy, Austria. They were everywhere. But they all kept in contact. They had this fundamental foundation, this Kabbalistic culture. That, as they said in this Judaica Encyclopedia, pursued their specific way of life apart from the surrounding Christian and Muslim society, facing humiliation and persecution at every turn of political events and in constant awareness of their insecurity. The great wave of anti-Jewish persecution in Poland and the Russia, which set it in with the Chamaniki massacres. So way back then they had these massacres of Jewish people. Way before World War II and Hitler and Germany, what they call now the Holocaust. They had a Holocaust back then. As we shall see, that's the words they use. In 1648, so the Chamaniki massacres were 1648. Deeply affected Ashkenazi Jewry, these are the Jews that converted to Judaism who are not Hebrews by any means, and had wide repercussions, especially through the large number of captives in many countries, whose ransom led to lively agitation. Soon after this disaster came the Russian-Swedish War of 1655, which also struck those areas of Polish Jewish settlement which had not been shattered by the Chamanikis' attacks. Important as these factors undoubtedly were to the upsurge of Masonic hopes in Polish Jewry, they are not sufficient to explain what actually happened. And no doubt local conditions prevailing in various parts of the diaspora contributed their share. But the political and social events are only one part of the story. So now my brain is thinking again. 4,000 years ago, 3,800 years ago, whenever. And Moses helped free the Hebrews, the original Jewish, they weren't called Jews, they were called Hebrews, from Egyptian captivity. 3,800 years ago. He parted the sea, there were plagues. God intervened, so the story goes. So thousands of years later, same thing, that they're being persecuted, and it's creating a Masonic fever. They want the Messiah to come and save them. Okay, moving on. Important as these factors undoubtedly were to the upsurge of Masonic hopes in Polish Jewry. So this is 1665. Masonic hopes. Where's the Savior? The central and unifying factor behind the Sabbatean movement was of a religious nature, connected with the profound metamorphosis in the religious world of Judaism caused by the spiritual renewal centered in Safed in the 16th century. Its decisive feature was the rise of the Kabbalah. So they have this Kabbalah book. That's their Bible. The culture of the Jews is the Kabbalah. And many of the Kabbalists were accused of sorcery, witchcraft. to a dominant position in Jewish life. So the Kabbalah became a dominant position in Jewish life. That would be witchcraft and sorcery, or a version of it. And particularly in those circles which were receptive to new religious impulses and formed the most active sector of the Jewish communities. The new Kabbalah, which went out from Safad, especially in its Luranic forms, wedded striking concepts to the Masonic ideas, Messianic. So they were going to have a Messiah come and save them. It could be characterized as Messianism, pervading mysticism. Did you hear me? It says it in this book. I'm not making up these words. Right above my hand. It's a heavy book. Wow. So it could be characterized as Messianism, pervading mysticism, thus introducing a new element of tension into the older Kabbalah, which was of a much more contemplative nature. Lurianic Kabbalah proclaimed an intimate bond between the religious activity of the Jews as he performs the commandments of the law and the meditations for prayer and messianic message. So, meditation, Kabbalah, incantations, abracadabra, hocus pocus, numerology, geometry, shapes, things, magic amulets, was all part of this religion. All being has been in exile since the very beginning of creation. So they believe all being, all of us, are in exile, or at least them, has been in exile since the very beginning of creation, and the task of restoring everything to its proper place has been given to the Jewish people. So the Jewish people, according to this Kabbalistic religion, it's their job to restore all humanity from its exile. Whose historic fate and destiny symbolize the state of the universe at large. So I guess this is a lot bigger than what most people think about reality. The sparks of divinity are dispersed everywhere. And as the sparks of the original soul of Adam, so now we talk about Adam and Eve here, but they are held captive by the Kalipa, the power of evil, and must be redeemed. This final redemption, however, cannot be achieved by one single Messianic act, but will be effective through a long chain of activities that prepare the way. A long chain of activities that prepare the way. And oh my God, haven't we seen wars going on for hundreds of years and revolutions, and these people were instigators and leaders in these things and planners of wars and revolutions. Not all Jewish people. And just like when I talk about the Freemasons, Illuminati, and all these other groups, a lot of the lower echelon of people, the lower levels, they're not aware of what they're really into. But we can be sure that the people over there planning and scheming, controlling the world, trying to bring about the new age and the new world order, involved in these child abductions and sexual activities and rituals, satanic rituals, they know what they're doing. They're following this religion. These mass murders like 9/11 and so many others. They seem to happen on certain dates. All satanic rituals. Lots of videos on this stuff. All the things in the cartoons, and even The Simpsons, or those playing cards with all the Illuminati pictures about events that were profited. I mean, prophesied. You could get the Illuminati game set, and it had the buildings being destroyed. It had all kinds of other stuff that later on happened. In the pictures of The Simpsons, the cartoon, animated show. You know, they show you the clock in the background is 911. They show you a magazine that Bart is holding. It has a little 911. It has towers in the background blowing up. These people are a little deranged. And I guess evil would be a derangement, in my opinion. But apparently these people think it's a divine activity and can bring about redemption. As crazy as that may seem, as I keep saying. I read this stuff, and I just kept being blown away by reading it. I'm going, oh my God, I didn't know this. The final redemption, however, cannot be achieved by one single Masonic act, but will be effected through a long chain of activities that prepare the way. What the Kabbalists call restoration, tinkum, implied both the process which the shattered elements of the world would be restored to harmony, which is the essential task of the Jewish people. You watched my video, The Jewish Utopia, or you've looked up the Protocols of Zion. These people plan on ruling with an iron fist. Communism come to mind? Under the disguise of socialism come to mind? Biodiversity, Agenda 21. Why are they dumping chemicals in the sky? HARP transmitters, bringing about wars, 911 in the Middle East. It's a plan, it says it here. Long process. Which is the essential task of the Jewish people. In the final result, the state of redemption, announced by the appearance of the Messiah, who marks the last stage. So in 1666, this Shabbetai Zevi, was he this Messiah who brought to the people a parallel set of commandments, opposite of Moses' commandments that he received on top of the mountain. Political liberation and all that the national myth connected with it were seen as no more than external symbols of a cosmic power. So when we talk about cosmic powers, I just showed you all those books on apparently gray aliens who can walk through walls, abduct people, seed them, so they have children, or take their seed from them. What does all that have to do with this? I believe everything. It says it right here, cosmic power. Cosmic process, which in fact takes place in the secret releases of the universe. No conflict was foreseen between the traditional national and the political content of the Messianic idea and the new spiritual and mystical note which it acquired in Loranic Kabbalah. Those susceptible to the Kabbalistic theologies of religion, of Judaism, focused their activity on hastening the arrival of the world Tukum by the ascetic life which, though in strict accordance with the demands of the law, was permeated with virtual messianism. This is big stuff if you think about it. You ever want to know what's really going on behind the scenes? And most people know today that, the one percenters control much of the world and everything. These elitists. Tex Mars sent me that newsletter saying that the leaders of most corporations were Jewish, and so much other stuff. I've gone over my videos, Bloody Zion, the Jewish man who moved to Israel, the American Jew who moved to Israel, Jack Bernstein. In the Freemasonic books I've gone over, the Illuminati books, the conspiracy theory books. Why do they have to swear under threat of death to keep the goings-on secret? If they're really into demonic worship and practices anti-Ten Commandments, I suppose they would have to keep all that secret. So the hastening the arrival of the world to come by the ascetic life, which through in strict accordance with the demands of the law was permeated with virtual messianism. So back when they were prisoners or slaves of Egypt, they were praying or prophesied a coming Messiah to help them escape Egypt. So one can say with some confidence that for the past 4,000 or less years, these Jewish people mentioned in this book, and of course not all Jewish people, a lot of people were just citizens out there, but apparently the ones that are into this Kabbalistic theology have been persecuted wherever they go for 4,000 years. And there's one question that comes to my mind. Was that persecution everybody else's fault, or did they bring it upon themselves? Were they practicing sorcery and witchcraft? The Messianism, however, was not an abstract hope for a distant future. Made with Luranism, a dynamic factor in Jewish history was its proclamation that almost the whole process of restoration had been completed and that the final redemption was just around the corner. Only the last stages had to be passed through and the redemption would be at hand. And of course, if you're alive today and you're not a child, you remember the turn of the century 2000, the scare, the computers were all going to stop, and the end of the world prophesied at 2012, and all this gloom and doom and all these YouTube videos and websites and activities even by our own governments, false flags, 911 shootings, bombings. It's not stopping. It's all part of this process. They're messing with our reality. They want to bring about this end time, this restoration. It says it here, just around the corner. Only the last stage had to be passed through and redemption would be at hand. As they gained ascendancy and dominated religious life, the ideas like these became a common catalyst for an acute perception of messianic fever. In fact, Luranic Kabbalists became a dominant factor only about 1630 to 1640. And the ideology of the Sabbatean movement is closely connected with this development. That the movement had an overwhelming appeal to such different centers of the diaspora, Jews who were dispersed all over the area, the world, as Yemen and Persia and Turkey and North Africa and Italy and the Ashkenazi Jewish communities, the Khazars who adopted the Jewish religion, called the Yiddish Jews, who were shipped to New York and caused so many problems that Henry Ford bought the Dearborn Independent newspaper and started talking about the situation and problems. And even Congress in the United States back then were having hearings on something called the Jewish problem. And even to one point, they, like Donald Trump recently, banning the foreigners, from the people that were from the Muslim areas from coming to the United States with a presidential executive order. Back then, they stopped the immigration of Jewish people from coming into the United States. Why, I ask? And are these activities and are this restoration and all this redemption talk and Masonic entity coming back, is all this still going on today? And is it anti-Christianity, anti-Ten Commandments, a parallel set of commandments, which is going to say in this book, under Shabbetai Zevi? And if this is all true, it might answer a lot of questions. So what's it have to do with cosmic beings, reptilians, gray aliens, masters, demons, angels? It's the cosmic reality. I think everything. That the movement had an overwhelming appeal to such different centers of the diaspora as Yemen, Persia, Turkey, North Africa, Italy, and the Ashkenazi communities can explain only by the fact that the intense propaganda of Lurianism is a form of the Kabbalah, had created a climate favorable to the release of the messianic energies aroused by the victory of the new Kabbalah. So if you know anything about spiritualism or manifestation, a lot of people will say you bring about what you think about. It's a manifested reality. You are who you think you are. So they had this Lurianism, Kabbalistic theology, religious teaching, and it was bringing about this messianic fever, these energies, apparently in our reality. They can be manifested, just like the praying and the prophesizing for a Messiah when the Hebrews were slaves of the Egyptians. Apparently there's more to our world than we know. And like Rabbi Marvin Antelman wrote the book To Eliminate the Opate, you're receiving comfort and help from praying, because the opate is like an opium effect. It makes you feel comfort and warm. Of course, opium is bad for you, a drug. And believing in God and praying is a form of a drug. It helps people feel secure and comfort that God will protect them. They don't want people to believe in God and pray to God, because what you pray for is what you get. So they have to stop the good people from believing. And as we have all seen, they've got to have a lot of the good people shifted over to the dark side. You go to any downtown area and you see big skulls and bones on the buildings, and it's everywhere, permeating magazines, movies, TV shows, people's arms and bodies with daggers and tattoos. The symbolism is everywhere. There is this switcheroo. And they do want to destroy Christianity, and they want people who are the good people, who believe in the original Ten Commandments, to believe all that is just not real. Meanwhile, they know what they're doing psychologically. And there's a lot of that out there that we can find that I've gone over in my videos. There is these scientists of our world, even with the CERN collider over there in the Swiss border, Geneva, in trying to break through to this other dimension, opening up portals. Just like when Hitler, his cult abducted a Munich gypsy man in Munich, Germany, and sacrificed him to bring forth some kind of being. It was in Hitler's diary, according to Rabbi Marvin Antelman, to impregnate another girl laying on the altar. It's always about this beings they're trying to create. So we, the people, might want to wake up to what this mindset is going on in the world, why they're having sexual, satanic rituals with children, and sacrificing people, and so much more, and the symbols on TV. Even on Sandy Hook, the school shooting, when that one news reporter flashes up on the TV screen the picture of the owl, that was intentional. I was telling you who did it. The owl's one of their beings, like at the Bohemian Grove, Moloch. All right, moving on. This messianism, however, was not an abstract hope for a distant future. What made Lurianism a dynamic factor in Jewish history was its proclamation that almost the whole process of restoration had been completed and that the final redemption was just around the corner. Only the last stages had to be passed through and redemption would be at hand. We read that. This is the reason why places like Amsterdam, Leghorn, and Saloka, where the Jews lived relatively free from oppression, nevertheless became crucibles of the movement and centers of Sabbatianism activities. So I can say, it's maybe sounds too simple to say it, but it seems like this sorcery, this witchcraft activity was spreading like wildfire. Shabbetai Zevi's early years and personality. The figure of a man who occupies the center of the movement is a most unexpected and surprising one. By now, his biography is one of the most completely documented of any Jew who played an important role of Jewish history. That's a pretty big statement to say about this guy. Shabbetai Zevi, who was born in Smyrna, Ishmar, on the 9th of Av, 1626, unless the date was manipulated to conform with the tradition of the Messiah, that the Messiah would be born on the anniversary of the destruction of the temple. So it has everything to do with the destruction of King Solomon's temple. One of the things talked about a lot in Freemasonic literature, handbooks, lodges, and material. So they are connected. We'll find out from what I'm researching. The Sabbatianism, this particular Kabbalistic theology religion, is also the religion of the Illuminati and all these secret societies. Even the Rosicrucians, Knight of Malta, Knight of Columbus. We're talking about witchcraft and Satanism. You can say it another word, is that they understand the truth of reality, and they're in contact with demonic energies or beings, and to manipulate things for their own gain and power and control. And mentally, it would probably make these people some very, what I would say, very sick, ill people. Just imagine who would participate in those rituals in the Bohemian Grove that a lot of our leading politicians have been photographed there. Throwing a baby into the fire, calling it a cremation of care. And all this stuff with the Pizzagate. And all these wars, helicopters with troops in there listening to rock and roll, machine gunning Arabs all over the place. How far is this going to go? If these people are really evil, and they are ignoring we the people, they are dumping chemicals in the sky, they are turning on these transmitters. I've made videos, you can look it up. They are making genetically modified foods that are toxic and deadly to us, causing tumors and all that, and fluoride in the water, and so many more malicious activities, controlling the weather, causing droughts, creating economic destruction, stirring up and falsifying information to create wars and all kinds of mass murder. When you get your head around the fact that these people of these secret societies who are in control of our world are so evil, they have no empathy. They think that the rest of us should be enslaved or dead. That's saying a lot. But yet, young people and old people and the people who are going with this new age and this new world order and going and getting a skull tattooed on their arm or a dagger or all these other triangles and other new age rainbow agenda occultism tattoos and symbolisms and activities. The evil forces, it seems like, are winning. So here this Shabbetai Levi is born. It's supposed to be on the anniversary of the destruction of King Solomon's temple, which is why they took over Palestine, called it Israel, and they've been eliminating the Palestinians for years. And if you look at a map of Israel, you'll see that they have on image site, Yahoo image site, map of Israel. They started out with a sliver of the land, and then they got more, and they got more and more. And now the map shows the Palestinians have a tiny little spot called Gaza, or the West Bank. And Israel has everything else. And now they even have something called the Greater Israel, where it's going to encompass Syria, Iraq, parts of Egypt, and it's a country half the size of the United States. And they have nuclear weapons, and this is their religion. Exploding a nuclear bomb in some major city or something, bringing about World War III. They have brought us World War I, World War II, French Revolution, Russian revolutions, war between North and the South United States. and so much more devastation, chaos, and anarchy. They're not about to start now. They have no qualms about it. And apparently they're on the run a little bit because they're being exposed, like the Pizzagate activities and other stuff, which means they'll have to hurry up and do one of their great atrocities or cause some kind of World War III or major catastrophe. So everybody will be diverted and look the other way again. His father, Mordecai Zevi, that would be Sabatin's father, came from the Peloponnesus Prapatas, probably from a family of Ashkenazi origin. So he wasn't really a Hebrew original Jewish person. He came from the country where the Khazarians converted to Judaism, who were known to be barbaric people. And that manifested a Messiah who said that the old commandments were not the right ones, and he produced a parallel set that were the opposite. And as a young man settled in Smyrna, where he was a modest poultry merchant, and later became an agent for Dutch and English traders. That would be his father. The great economic rise of Smyrna in those years made him wealthy, and the Shabbetai Zevi's brothers, Elijah and Joseph, were actually wealthy merchants. So these would have been the family members of this Messiah that nobody probably knows about, called Sabbatianism, which is worldwide, which is, according to some videos I watched on YouTube, actually the religion of the Illuminati, the banksters, and all these people who are causing all these problems all over the world. And all this bizarreness and symbolism that we all see. Shabbetai Zevi received a traditional education. His gifts being early recognized, he was destined by his family to become a Hakam, a member of the rabbinic elite. So he was born into a wealthy family, and they designated him because of his intellectual abilities to be a member of the rabbinic elite. He studied under Isaac de Alba and later under the most illustrious rabbi of Smyrna, at that time Joseph Ascapa, and seems to have been ordained as a Hakam, a rabbi, when he was about the age of 18. He had a thorough Talmudic, so he studied the Talmudic Jewish Bible, which is the really bad one. It says some atrocious things. Look it up on YouTube. Many people have made videos about what it says that these Talmudic worshiping people can do to 3-year-old little girls sexually, and much more. What they think about the rest of us. Just look up Talmudic Jews on Yahoo videos and see some of the videos for yourself. Don't believe me. I've looked at the videos. Some of that stuff's just too hard to watch. Training, and even his bitterest detractors never accused him of being an ignoramus. So nobody ever accused Shabbetai Zevi of being stupid and ignoramus. According to one source, he left the Visha at the age of 15, beginning a life of abstinence and a solitude and studying without the help of his teachers. So he was so smart that he actually left the institution and started studying on his own in abstinence and solitude, all alone, delving into the dark side. He was emotionally attracted to his mother, and at an early period developing an intense inner life. Starting out on the path of asceticism, he was best beset by sexual temptations. References to which have survived. In his adolescent years, he also embarked on the study of Kabbalah and concentrating mainly on the Zohar, another Jewish Bible. Having acquired considerable proficiency in Kabbalistic learning, some people accuse the Kabbalists of being sorcerers, practicing sorcery. He attracted other young contemporaries who studied with him. So here he was a young man, and he was attracting other young people And they were all studying this stuff, and they were meditating and being in solitude and taking it really serious to get into the other world. Between 1642 and 1648, he lived in semi-seclusion. During this period, he began to display a character that conforms largely to what handbooks of psychiatry described as an extreme case of kleiptomania, or manic depression, psychosis, depressive psychosis, periods of profound depression, and melancholy alternated with spasms of maniacal exaltation, and euphoric, separated by intervals of normalcy. So this guy was going into the mentally deranged zone, back into being a little normal, mentally deranged, depressed, back into normal. And this is the Messiah that brought about this culture that apparently operates behind the scenes with the secret societies, maybe? These states, which are richly documented throughout his life, persisted until his death. So you had these mental conditions back and forth. Later, they were described by his followers, not in psychopathological forms, but in theological terms, as illumination and fall or hiding of the face, a state where God hides his face from him. His mental affliction brought to the fore an essential trait of his character. During his periods of illumination, here we have the Illuminati there, he felt impelled to commit acts which ran counter to religious law. So he was doing some apparently atrocious sexual acts, and it caused a lot of people to raise their eyebrows and talk about him and think that he was a nut job. I'm paraphrasing there. Later called mesum, strange or paradoxical actions. Their content changed from time to time, but a predilection for strange and bizarre rituals and sudden innovations pervaded them at all. So he was acting bizarre. One thing that was constant to these exalted states, his inclination to pronounce the ineffable name of God. So he was pronouncing the name of God, the name you're never supposed to say. Apparently, if you know the names, the 72 names of God, but if you use those names, you can create magical happenings. The tetragrammation, see God names of. So according to their law, you're not supposed to say these names or say them especially out loud out on the plaza or with a crowd of people. But he was going into an insane, mental, deranged state, shouting the ineffable name of God, these magic names. In the periods of melancholy, which were of uneven length, he retired from human contact into solitude to wrestle with the demonic powers. So he had to go into privacy to wrestle with the demonic powers. He was saying these magical names, these ineffable names of God. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. By which he felt attacked and partly overwhelmed. So he felt he was being attacked by demonic beings. And remember when I went over A Separate Reality by Carlos Castellano, that video, that book. And the shamans take peyote or mushrooms or other kinds of drugs, and they go into this other state, this other reality where they see these very dangerous beings. And even that book I just showed you at the beginning of this video, Psychic Self-Defense, and so much more, shows me at least that this other world does exist. And when you enter into communication with this other world, it can be quite mentally challenging, to say the least. It makes people go insane. The exact moment that this illness broke out is not known, but at the latest it took place in 1648, when the news of the Chamanaki massacres reached. So there was another massacre of Jewish peoples in this town called Chamanaki, reached Smyrna. So there was still, it was back then in 1648, all over Europe and Russia and Poland, everywhere. A lot of the Jewish communities were having severe difficulties with everybody else. And it was they wanted to somehow escape all that, and they wanted some Messiah to come save them, and actually to destroy the rest of us, because we were interfering with their personal freedoms of practicing these Kabbalistic theologies, these satanic religion, I like to call it, in these videos, so it can be more easily understood. And if they did these practices in all these communities everywhere they went, and I'm just thinking out loud here, wouldn't that cause serious problems everywhere you went? All right, I'm going to try to end this video. And we have a lot more to go through. That was just 2 pages out of 20-something pages I have to go over on this material. Or you can go get the Encyclopaedia Judaica yourself. This is volume 14. I just found volume 12 on the computer today for $4. So there's 16 volumes, and you can buy one at a time with different things you might want to research. But let me finish this video here with this last note on Shabbetai Zevi. Starting to utter the name of God in public, he possibly also proclaimed himself the Messiah for the first time, since by then he was known to be mentally afflicted. Nobody took this seriously, and his behavior caused no more than a temporary commotion. So wherever he went, he was causing commotions, calling himself a Messiah, announcing the name of God, something you weren't supposed to speak. In Kabbalistic theology, witchcraft theology. It seems that his extravagances aroused more compassion than antagonism. Between 1646 and 1650, he contracted 2 marriages in Smyrna, which, since they were not consummated, ended in divorce. In his hometown, he was considered partly a lunatic and partly a fool, but since he had a very pleasant appearance and was highly musical, endowed with a particularly fine voice, he made friends, although not adherents of his Kabbalistic speculations. In those years, he began to speak of a particular mystery of the Godhead, which had been revealed to him through his spiritual struggles. So with that, I'll leave it, and I'm going to make more videos on this topic in the Encyclopaedia Judaica, and it is explosive information. And if this is actually a worldwide secret society religious thing, this Shabbetai Zevi, which later became the Frankists, which later also integrated in with the Illuminati and all these secret societies and cults everywhere, with the visible symbols and activities we see with wars and chaos and anarchy and mayhem and murder and theft. Maybe it explains a lot. Thank you for watching my video, Rick Miracle Reporting.